Monday afternoon to 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Hope you had a great weekend. Thanks for joining us. Plenty of Browns to get to, and we'll get there in just a second. But the Guardians had the #1 overall pick in the Major League Baseball draft, which is continuing today with rounds 3 through 10. First two rounds were yesterday. #1 overall, the Guardians drafted Travis Bazzana, second baseman from Oregon State, with the first pick. First time ever that a second baseman has been taken #1 overall. Bazzana had a great season for the Oregon State Beavers. Was also the MVP of the Cape Cod League last summer. That's a wood bat league that usually foretells some pretty good things. When you have success there, you usually do pretty well in professional baseball. Major League Baseball Network, a breakdown of what the Guardians are getting in Travis Bazzana.
I want to tell you why he's so special. I needed to see one swing. There was a ball he turned on right here, and I was like, oh my goodness. You're not going to get in on him. He's just a really talented hitter. And when you think about the strike zones and as many umpires as you yelled at, Tony, it stretches the zone, he can handle it. But look, Adley Rutschman, 19. We're talking about Nick Magical. These are the big stars that came out of Oregon State. Trevor Larnach, they're all in the big leagues. And I'm telling you, I'm sticking my neck out on this. And Stephen Kwan, who's been killing it, and we'll see him on Tuesday night. I think at the stage he's at, he's a better hitter offensively than all those guys when they were in college, including Adley. But the defense is something that they're going to see have to grow and come on. But I just know he fits the Guardians model. Grinder, always getting after it. He was hitting today, and he was talking about, he always told Coach, I'm just getting it dialed in, Skip. That's what he does. He hits every day, constantly. You love people that can work. I just think he fits their model. That's why I thought he'd be 1-1.
So take a look at this. These are the highest drafted second baseman ever in Major League Baseball draft. So Bazzana, as we told you, the first time a second baseman has been taken #1 overall. Those others in the top 10, mixed results. We'll leave it at mixed results. One of the things that Chris Antonetti, Guardians, like so much about Bazzana, constantly trying to work at his craft as a hitter, trying to find a way to get better. He was asked where that trait comes from yesterday when he met with the media.
I always was very competitive growing up, and I think that as my passion got more and more focused to being, a great baseball player, that turned into like not wanting to, just wanting to have an edge and wanting to know reasons why, like find out why someone can do something and why certain guys have success. And I just always wanted to understand things a little bit deeper and never kind of miss on having that edge. And yeah, I think it just started with being competitive, and I'm just trying to give myself the best shot to go to great things.
Travis Bazzana from Australia as well. Grew up in Australia before he went over to Oregon State, where he played his college ball. All right, we turn our attention now to the Browns training camp. We'll get underway end part of next week at the Greenbrier. Former NFL running back James White played on some really good Patriots teams with Tom Brady. What he thinks relative to Deshaun Watson and the Browns this year.
He can do it. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I've competed against him, quite a few times in my time in the NFL, and I've seen it firsthand what he can do. I know it's a little bit in the past, but I'm still a believer that he's still, that same guy. He still can get it done. I just think they have a great situation there for him. I said Kevin Stefanski's been doing a great job. They have a good defense that can get on the ball, give him plenty of opportunities, especially early on in the season, to really get into a rhythm. Like I said, I just think having a full training camp, getting back healthy, getting those reps with those guys in the offseason, when the season cranks up, I think they will see a different Deshaun Watson this year. When you have the amount of talent that they have, you don't have to go out there and do too much. You don't have to throw for 400 yards a game. It can be 250 a game. Protect the football, use your legs at times. I think he has everything in his repertoire to go out there and have a successful season. Just has to go out there and do it.
With that, let's welcome in Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Tim, there's a lot to what James White says that I think it's valid. And the other thing I would say is I think this offense is going to be built around the things Deshaun Watson does well. And I don't think you could say that the past couple of years.
Yeah, I do think obviously this is more geared toward this offense with Ken Dorsey and Andy Dickerson to an extent coming in certainly does favor more of what Deshaun Watson does than what Alex Van Pelt brought in with Kevin Stefanski in 2020. That's not to say that Deshaun Watson hasn't been good because even looking at the stats, from 2023 compared to 2022, he played the same amount of games, had more completions, a better completion percentage, one fewer interception, and had a better rating and fewer sacks in basically the same amount of games. You could also argue he played 3/4 less games than he did in 2022 and looked better. So I think that's a sign that maybe he kind of started to knock some of the rust off prior to his injury issues. And certainly the Titans game, the Cardinals game, even the second half of especially the second half of the Ravens game, that looked more like Deshaun Watson. So we've said all off season. It feels like it's still there for Deshaun Watson. It's just a matter of staying on the field consistently, continuing to gain that confidence. And now that he's in an offense that seems like it's a better fit for his skills, it'll be interesting to see if he can continue to take those steps towards getting back to what he used to be in Houston.
All right, this is really good. We keep seeing things from Nick Chubb. Take a look at this. This is from Jock Film's Instagram. Nick Chubb weightlifting, and this is current. So this is 8 months after major reconstructive knee surgery. It looks like Nick Chubb is like Nick Chubb, 580 pounds squatting on that bar that makes it even more difficult to do. Tim, it's starting to look more and more like Nick Chubb is looking like the Nick Chubb we have come to grow and love as Cleveland Browns fans.
Yeah, and that weight's real. I mean, metal isn't supposed to bend that way. So, I mean, I think that's pretty obvious that that's a real barbell that Nick Chubb is squatting. And we've always known he was incredibly strong. We've always known that he's extremely athletic, but this has got to be nothing short of a good sign for Browns fans that Nick Chubb could be close to playing at some point this season. I don't know when that is. It'd be interesting to see, what his limitations are at training camp early in the season. I would imagine it's going to be interesting to figure out. Maybe it's a thing where he doesn't play a handful of games, and maybe the Browns can afford, I think, especially with what the moves they made in the offseason, adding Devontae Freeman, adding Naheem Hines, adding that depth at running back, or adding that depth at running back to basically ensure that you don't necessarily have to rely solely on Jerome Ford, and you can give Nick Chubb the kind of the freeway, I guess, to be better, to get better, make sure you're close to 100% as far as health is concerned, and then at some point in the season be able to kind of turn him loose.
Yeah, the other thing to keep in mind, contract is structured, so he's going to want to play. You could see like a limited carries to kind of ramp him back up that way, although it'll be interesting to see. I mean, he's going to want to play. Let's hope the Browns do kind of ramp it up a little bit slowly and make sure he's kind of hitting his stride later in the year when the games become more important. I don't agree with this one, but we'll take a look at it. It's ranking the NFL triplets: quarterbacks, running backs, wide receiver, tight end trios. They've only done the bottom half of the league. So they go Cardinals 15, Jaguars 16, Colts 17, Seahawks 18, Bears 19, Vikings 20, Buccaneers 21. They have the Browns at 22. So the Browns are all the way down at 22. Watson, Chubb, and Cooper, they say, are bottom 9 in the league, and that's way too low. I mean, you got Kyler Murray, James Conner, and a rookie, Marvin Harrison Jr. at 15. Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, and Christian Kirk at 16. Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman Jr. at 17. Geno Smith, Kenneth Walker, Metcalf, Caleb Williams, DeAndre Swift, and DJ Moore at 19. And then, the Vikings, they have J.J. McCarthy, Aaron Jones, and Justin Jefferson at 20. I get it. There's some question marks, but that's still way too low.
Yeah, I think seems like a sense from the outside that Deshaun Watson still needs to prove it, and I understand that sentiment, but at the same time, I don't think there's any universe where Deshaun Watson should be ranked below J.J. McCarthy in anything. Maybe Caleb Williams, I'll listen a little bit. I won't know if I'll agree on that, but I will at least listen. But J.J. McCarthy, I've talked about it before with him. Yeah, I know he's got one of the best receivers, if not the best receiver in the game, in Justin Jefferson. Aaron Jones, for me, obviously is still very good. I just wonder how much mileage he still has left at this point of his career. But with JJ McCarthy, I have to see it on the field before I can really believe it with him as far as the tangibles go. I said the reason he was going to go high in the draft and where he did was because of the intangibles, the leadership, the clutch factor, those different things. You still have to play the game and you still have to have the fundamentals and the tangible ability to be successful. And it obviously Deshaun Watson, there's still skepticism about him. And like I said before, I can understand it. He has to kind of show that he can play consistently. But these are things that we've talked about since January that, we're not going to see any answer to it till they actually play the games in September. And if Watson can stay on the field for 5, 6, 7 games, it's just hard for me to see him really having that fall off and not getting back to where he was, because we've seen so many flashes of it. And it just seems like the more he's been out there, especially in 2023, the longer he was out on the field, the better it seemed like he got.
Tim Bielik from cleveland.com, the Plain Dealer, and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. On the other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports for CLE, I'll be right back. Stay with us.
This new $1,000 tax-free scratch-off, $18,000, $1,000 winners? Another winner? Good thing I brought my check-writing pens. You know what else is winning? My carpal tunnel syndrome. Wouldn't it be great for these guys if they could cash their tickets in online?
They can, with the Ohio Lottery app.
What? That's great! Wait, what's an app?
Attention shoppers, the Ohio Lottery's $1,000 tax-free $20 scratch-off is your best chance ever to win $1,000. And yes, you can cash it in online.
We continue talking Browns with Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, this is Big J. I'd like to make a comment concerning the negativity I'm hearing against the teams, Kevin Stefanski and his play calling, the Browns in general. I once heard that your energy can change the circumstances. Over the last couple of years, we've improved as a team and went to the playoffs with literally 5 different quarterbacks. It's a feat of amazement. I'm not saying it's our fault, but maybe that energy is building some of this negativity, is causing and reflecting back on the team. So why don't the 12th man do what the 12th man is supposed to do? And let's just go in with the attitude if everybody has a healthy year, that this team can actually dominate.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. So, Tim, he's referring to some. There have been some that have, been calling about Kevin Stefanski. I don't see it, quite frankly, with what Kevin Stefanski has done the last couple of years, but everybody has their opinions.
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason to be negative. In fact, you consider what the Browns had to go through to get to the playoffs last year. They needed P.J. Walker to quarterback the team against the 49ers, playing the whole game, and he won that game. They needed DTR to be the quarterback against the Steelers. They won that game. They had to get Joe Flacco off the couch into form at the end of the season, with games against teams like the Jaguars and the Texans, teams that were battling for playoff position. He was great down the stretch, and he was the reason that they had that stretch at the end of the season that got them into the playoffs. That's credit to Kevin Stefanski, that when you consider all the injuries his team had, and it felt like every time we talked last week during the season, there were 2 more guys that went down with injuries, whether it was for just a handful of weeks or the entire season. It felt like every single week there were notable players that fell out of the lineup, and the team kept winning anyway. That's a credit to Kevin Stefanski. And I think maybe I'm not seeing as much negativity out there, but I do think, when you have a guy who's won NFL Coach of the Year twice in 4 seasons, taken the Browns to the playoffs twice in 4 seasons, there should be a lot of excitement. There should be a lot of belief that Kevin Stefanski is the guy to get things done. And we've seen it through 4 seasons. Now, the hope for the Browns is that you get a healthy Deshaun Watson, you get relatively healthy everything else, especially the offensive tackles compared to last season, and see where you go. Maybe you finally get that first division title since the late 80s. Maybe you can host a playoff game, which they haven't done in 30 years. Just more things they got to check off, but Stefanski's gotten a lot of things checked off already in these last 4 seasons.
All right. ESPN, we've been following them as they do their top 10 different position groups. Today we're going to take a look. Top 10 interior offensive linemen as voted on executives, coaches, and scouts through ESPN. Number 1, Zach Martin of the Cowboys. 2, Chris Lindstrom of the Falcons. 3, Quentin Nelson, currently of the Colts. Joe Thuney of the Chiefs is 4, and Joel Bitonio of the Browns is 5. Honorable mention, Wyatt Teller. So of Bitonio, AFC executive, still playing a very high level, age showing a bit in pass protection, but one of the most reliable guards the last decade. Could be a sneaky Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. NFL official just doesn't get beat very often. His length is a problem. On Wyatt Teller, NFC executive, good, powerful. He's one of those PFF superheroes that's overvalued a bit. NFC offensive coach, really talented, but streaky. You know what? You put those two inside, and you haven't had to worry in a number of years. So you can say anything you want about them. They're two of the best in the NFL.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing when you think of, the year Joel Bitonio was drafted in 2014. We all know what that draft was like. The fact that you got Bitonio, who certainly has a chance to be a Hall of Famer. I think he's got a pretty good resume, especially if the Browns can add to it with more playoff success, including a potential Super Bowl run. Maybe he gets there. The fact that you can still find a Hall of Famer after that first round that they had with Justin Gilbert, Johnny Manziel, that was a nice job. And you do have to give credit where credit is due as far as finding Joel Bitonio, who's been such a rock on this offensive line for the better part of a decade. Obviously missed time last year, but I think that's just going to happen with a lot of players. I don't think you're ever going to see another Iron Man streak the way that Joe Thomas had, throughout his career. Obviously 10,000 plus consecutive snaps is just incredible. And then Wyatt Teller, that was obviously a great find. Former former late round pick in Wyatt Teller. And he's obviously turned into a very good contributor, a consistent starter on that right guard spot. And like you said, when you have those two guys in the middle of that offensive line, it makes things a lot easier. You don't have to really worry about it. When you have a very good offensive line, it kind of eases a coach's mind a little bit. Knowing that he can call a bunch of different things, knowing that, the quarterback's going to get a little extra time to throw because he's got good protection in front of him. And those two guys in particular were huge when the tackles kept getting injured last season when they were down their fourth and fifth tackles. The reason the offensive line was still able to be solid was because they had Bitonio and Teller in the middle there.
So this is from Sports Illustrated. NFL players on the roster bubble from every team entering training camp. For the Browns, they say Jack Conklin and Elijah Moore, and I disagree with both. Once Conklin returns from season-ending injury, he'll be in an open competition with Dwan Jones for Cleveland's starting right tackle spot. Could wind up as a trade asset. That could happen. The contract situation limits that, I would say. Moore represents another potential bubble player, considering the Browns could save more than $3 million by releasing him. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen either. I think both of these guys figure into the plans of the Browns, and those plans include contending for the AFC North Divisional Championship.
Yeah, there really is no point to moving on from either of these guys, particularly Jack Conklin. I mean, if you cut him after camp now, it really doesn't provide a lot of cap relief this year. I mean, even looking at over the cap.com, just cutting him right now would only free up about $728,000 in cap space, and that's pretty much negligible. So why would you move on from Jack Conklin, especially considering you may be starting him at right tackle opposite Jedrick Wills, assuming Wills is still going to be the left tackle, and then you have Dwan Jones kind of waiting in the wings right there. But considering the health issues they've had at tackle, it really doesn't make a lot of sense to move on from a tackle right now unless one is just clearly better than the other. And if it's clear that, injury, just not going to be the same guy for an injury. But I just don't see that, considering how well Conklin has played through whenever he's been healthy with the Browns. And then Elijah Moore, again, he's in a contract year. I feel like guys in contract years, especially coming off rookie contracts, those might be some of the last guys you want to cut, because those are guys that are going to be motivated to have big seasons and then to want to get that payday, when they can come up for those second contracts. So I would think, because Moore is at the end of his rookie contract, he feels like one of the last guys you want to let go, because like I said, he could be motivated to want to show teams that he's worth investing double-digit $1 million a year into, especially coming off a season that we know he struggled. We know he wasn't quite what I think everybody expected him to be. He still had the best season of his career, in spite of the fact that he was catching passes from 4 or 5 different quarterbacks.
Yeah, and again, you don't have Amari Cooper under contract next year. You may by the beginning of training camp. Really the only solid guy you have is Jerry Jeudy. So I would pump the brakes on thinking he's going to be a bubble guy. All right, before we go to break, how vital was Grant Delpit? Take a look at these numbers. This is excluding the Week 18 matchup with Cincinnati. 13 games, Delpit was on the field with the Browns defense. They gave up an average of 263 yards a game. The 4 games without him, over 300. So there's a 30-some yard difference, roughly, with him on the field and off the field from that safety position. Again, it's a guy Jim Schwartz knew exactly how he wanted to use him.
Yeah, obviously these last 2 seasons with Grant Delpit coming off the torn Achilles that he suffered in the rookie offseason. Now you're seeing the guy that everybody thought the Browns were getting when he was at LSU, and he was one of the biggest game changers in all of college football defensively. And then you look at, 2022, Grant Delpit finally had a breakout season, 4 interceptions, 10 pass breakups. Didn't necessarily have the best numbers as far as, pass coverage concerned, just 3 pass breakups and a pick, but 7 tackles for loss in the safety position. That's pretty significant. And we've talked before about how he fits the Jim Schwartz mentality of guys who could play downhill, and that ability to play down in the box, as well as Delpit's ability to cover as well as he has, in the last couple of seasons. You've got a guy, if you're the Browns, that certainly has a lot of versatility. And when you have safeties who can play deep as well as play in the box, that gives you a lot of different options to work with if you're Jim Schwartz.
Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take one more time out, other side of the break. Back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave, Frank from Cleveland, brother. The guy from Rochester. I wasn't comparing Kevin Stefanski to Bill Walsh. Scripted plays work. I'm pretty sure Kyle Shanahan used them with the 49ers nowadays, too. Number 2, Jim Schwartz's defense, second year. I say we lead the league in sacks and turnovers. That's going on a limb. And 3, Amari Cooper. Okay, give him a couple years. Even if Jerry Jeudy steps up and becomes a number 1, wouldn't you still rather have Amari Cooper as your number 2 over anybody else? I don't know. But anyways, I love you, brother. You and the family be safe, and I'll be in touch. Things are getting close to training camp. All right. Love you, Dave.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. So, Tim, we talked about the scripted plays. I brought it up because there's a stat that says if the team scores first in the NFL, they win 70% of the games. And everybody is hammered Kevin Stefanski because of his in-game adjustments. Well, those first 15, 20, how many ever scripted plays are important, because if you go down and score 70% of the time, you win the game. And then it went, it spiraled from there. But to his point, Amari Cooper, they got to find a way. And yeah, I'd try to get him for 2 years and maybe an incentive-laden third year if you need to get it done. Something along those lines. I think he's still got some left in him. The question is going to be how much money he wants guaranteed.
Yeah, and I think that's ultimately, the big question. As much as, what the term's going to be, I agree maybe 3 years is the max I would go, just because you don't want to be paying a lot of money to a guy who's on a decline. And the good thing with Amari Cooper is he's obviously had 2 great seasons. He's been productive regardless of who's been throwing in the football. Obviously, he deserves the pay raise considering how the wide receiver market has skyrocketed, but it's also because, the Browns really have struggled to draft, quality receivers behind them. We thought Donovan Peoples-Jones might be that guy. Really didn't have that great last draft eligible season. Then he was traded midseason. Still waiting to kind of see what Cedric Tillman and David Bell are going to be. Obviously they traded for Jeudy, and there's a lot of buzz around him. But the thing with Amari Cooper and why you sign him, you know exactly what he is. You know how he plays. You know he's a big play guy, that he's a legitimate number one guy. And guys like that are hard to find. And when you find one of those guys, you find a way to keep him. And that's a big reason, that's one of the reasons Andrew Berry has really been working hard with cap flexibility, is to have the room to keep these guys around as long as possible. So certainly no reason a deal can't get done. It's just kind of, to me, a question of when, how long, and how much it's going to be to keep Cooper in Cleveland.
Along those lines, this is from CBSSports.com. Each AFC team's biggest training camp question. For the Browns, what is the status of Chubb and Cooper? And earlier we showed you Nick Chubb, lifting squatting almost 600 pounds on his reconstructed knee. But yeah, those are major parts of the offense.
Yeah, I think with Amari Cooper as well, how he adjusts to this new offense and what Ken Dorsey is going to dial up as far as these choice routes. Obviously, the sooner the Browns can get him into camp, get the deal done, the better it's going to be for everybody, so that there's less of a kind of a rust period at the beginning where you could kind of get him going a little more quickly. He does have chemistry with Deshaun Watson already, so that's a positive. It's just, chemistry with a quarterback in a slightly different offensive system. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And with Nick Chubb, like we talked about earlier, like I said, you already have Jerome Ford, Deontay Foreman, Naheem Hines. You can take your time with Nick Chubb. Those guys should certainly be good enough to hold the fort with the running game, especially with a much improved offensive line. I'm curious, how Andy Dickerson coming in from the Sean McVay tree, how that's going to influence the running game. And certainly, like I said before, the biggest thing is these guys staying healthy that they were last year. Although I feel, as I've said before also, it feels very unlikely that they would be in a similar situation health-wise. So like we talked about at the top with Chubb, the Browns just need to be patient with him, and maybe you can save him for the second half of the season. And if he's anywhere close to where Nick Chubb was prior to the injury, then you have a fresh back who can certainly carry the load in the second half of the season when it's colder, when teams are getting more beaten up, worn down. And we saw it last season that the run game kind of tailed off a little bit because just the offensive line was just not nearly as good. So if you can get Chubb back late at the end of the season, like I said, even at 70 to 75%, that is much better than having no Nick Chubb. It just comes down to how they manage him these next several weeks and months.
So this is from the NFL Analysis Network. Bold predictions for the AFC North. Deshaun Watson wins the AFC North. Browns win their first division title since 1989. Suddenly, the quarterback's 5-1 run with the team in 2023 looks like a first step towards a new era. Everybody makes a big deal about the numbers that Deshaun Watson has thrown, and there's some truth to them. I don't want to be totally dismissive of them. Biggest numbers are he's 8-4 as a starting quarterback for the Browns. Those are the numbers that matter. Now, some will argue, they're winning in spite of them. They're still winning.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I know everybody's going to say wins are not a quarterback stat, and I agree with it, but there's something to the fact that they've won 5 of the 6 games he started in last season. Obviously, he did not play well in that Pittsburgh game. We talked about those turnovers, those face masks. They still had a chance to win at the end of the game with a couple. And they crossed midfield in the final minutes with a chance to steal that game in Pittsburgh. And then all of a sudden you're talking about a completely different narrative. But Deshaun Watson, the stats haven't been great, but it's in these games, he's made the plays that are necessary to win football games. Sometimes that's just not quantifiable, even in an era of analytics. And you would imagine as he continues to do that, the stats will look better. He'll start to have a bunch of multiple touchdown games, maybe string a couple games together where he doesn't turn the football over. And I think that comes with playing a little more often. And that's obviously going to be the big question with him is, can he stay on the field? Can he be out there for more than 4 or 5 games in a row? And like I said, if he can, certainly he has a chance to have success. And he's already won in Baltimore. If you look at it, the Browns beat the Steelers at home with a rookie 5th-round quarterback. They've been really good against Joe Burrow throughout his career. Baltimore is the tricky one because Lamar Jackson is so special and he's so tough to play against. But Deshaun Watson has proven he can go into Baltimore and win a game, especially trailing in the second half. So certainly if he plays close to the Houston level, there's no reason to think this team doesn't have a legitimate shot to win the AFC North. It just comes down to his availability.
Tim Bielik, plain dealer, cleveland.com. As always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Tim.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Have a good day.
You too. Tim Bielik, make sure you check him out. Plain dealer, cleveland.com. Always good and insightful stuff on Browns and the NFL as well. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the plain dealer, cleveland.com. Straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Can you believe this new $1,000 tax-free scratch-off? $18,000, $1,000 winners? Another winner? Good thing I brought my check writing pens. You know what else is winning? My carpal tunnel syndrome. Wouldn't it be great for these guys if they could cash their tickets in online?
They can with the Ohio Lottery app.
What? That's great! Wait, what's an app?
Attention shoppers, the Ohio Lottery's $1,000 tax-free $20 scratch-off is your best chance ever to win $1,000. And yes, you can cash it in online.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. We showed you this a little bit earlier in the show. Take a look at this again. Nick Chubb, again, 8 months from his serious, major knee surgery. And Nick Chubb is back to squatting small vehicles in his rehab assignment. It is over. It's pushing. It's nearly 600 pounds. I believe it's 580 pounds on that special bar that puts more of an emphasis on, makes it more difficult to squat. Easy thing to say. Let's welcome in Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Mary Kay, Nick Chubb is doing Nick Chubb things. I know you've been asked in your Hey Mary Kays, do you think we may see him play on a limited basis early in the season, and what can we expect from Nick Chubb in 2024? I didn't expect to see that this soon. I really didn't.
No, we are seeing some things from Nick Chubb that most people 8 months out of surgery would not be able to do. But he's never been the norm. He's always been a freak of nature, always been superhuman. And to see him doing that, I think that should get Browns fans really, really excited that Nick is doing everything that he possibly can to get back as soon as possible. And we also know Nick well enough to know that if there's any way at all, he could set foot on that field and be active for that opener October 8th against the Dallas Cowboys. He's going to try to do it. I don't know if he can pull it off, but he's sure going to try.
And you would expect the Browns to be conservative. I won't say conservative is probably the best way to describe it. They're going to be conservative with his rehab.
Yeah, I would think that what they really want for Nick Chubb is for him to be there at the end when it really matters, when they need to make that playoff push, when other backs around the league and some other defenders are starting to tucker out a little bit. That's when you really want to throw a Nick Chubb at a team, at a defense. So, and they have that very grueling stretch in the final 7 games of the season. So many primetime games, so many division games, so many good quarterbacks. So because of that, that's when you really want to have him. And then, of course, you have the weather factoring in at that point in the year. And so, they don't want to rush him out there and risk a setback. So they'll be very, very smart about it. It will be a collaborative decision on the part of the medical staff, Nick, maybe hit some of his own people, and they'll put their heads together and make sure they do what's right for everyone.
So you and the reporters from cleveland.com, Plain Dealer, are doing 15 keys to Brown's Super Bowl run. It's a series of articles. There's a couple of them I want to ask you about. First of all, why Ken Dorsey is one of the 15 keys to a Browns Super Bowl run.
Yeah, I think Ken is a big, huge deal this year. They brought him in to help transform the offense in the same way that Jim Schwartz helped transform the defense last year, led it to #1 overall in the NFL. And Ken is going to come in here. He's already done this. He has put his mark, his stamp on this offense. He's brought concepts with him from New England that he learned under Brian Daboll in Buffalo. He's brought things from elsewhere as well. But he's running a similar scheme to what he did in Buffalo. It includes those choice routes that we keep talking about, those option routes for the receivers. It's something that, of course, Deshaun Watson feels very comfortable doing because he did it in Houston under Bill O'Brien. So Ken is going to have a huge impact on this offense this year. And we're just going to have to see how it goes in the early going. Of course, the big question is, will he call plays? Will he not? I have some strong opinions on that. But right now, that just has not been decided yet.
So the other thing is the way he relates to Deshaun Watson. It seems to be Deshaun Watson seems to really respond to the way he's kind of coaching him from what we've been able to gather. Why is Deshaun Watson one of those 15 keys to the Browns Super Bowl?
Well, Deshaun is for all the obvious reasons. You can have excellent quarterbacks, but when you have a quarterback that can do all of the things that Deshaun Watson can do, that's when you're getting up into that top echelon of quarterbacks that can actually get you to the promised land. That's the whole reason that they went out and traded for Deshaun Watson. That's why they took a risk on him with his off the field situation. That's why they kind of put their fan base through a very difficult time to get to a Super Bowl. And that's the whole goal here. And that's what they believe that he can do. It all comes down to him being healthy, but he looked good. He looked good in minicamp. He's looked good working out since then. And if he can be the Deshaun that he was in Houston, then this team, with all the talent around him and with this scheme, should be able to go pretty far.
So the other thing about Ken Dorsey, he's the quarterback coach. And again, Alex Van Pelt, nobody needs to defend him. He's a really good quarterback coach. But it's a little bit of a different approach to how you reach a quarterback with Ken Dorsey, correct?
Well, Ken definitely has the respect of Deshaun Watson, I think in part because of how he handled Josh Allen and how he handled Cam Newton. When you help to coach a quarterback to NFL MVP honors and then runner-up honors, like he did with Cam Newton and then Josh Allen, then you are going to get the instant street credibility from someone like a Deshaun Watson. He's going to want him some of that. No question about it. So that's what Deshaun wants. That's what the Browns want from Ken Dorsey, for him to restore the luster of Deshaun Watson, to bring back the shine and to bring back what he was able to do in Houston, where one year he threw for over 4,000 yards and he was #2 in the NFL in passer rating, only to Aaron Rodgers that year, 2020. It was his last excellent year in the NFL. That is what the Browns are hoping Ken Dorsey can pull back out of him.
All right, so another one of the 15 keys to a Browns Super Bowl run. Jerry Jeudy, why is he so important?
Well, Jerry Jeudy was their biggest offseason acquisition, and they really put their resources into Jerry Jeudy, signing him to that extension after they acquired him in a trade with the Denver Broncos, paying him $17.5 million a year. Now, it's not the going market rate for a top tier receiver, but for your #2, which he still is right now behind Amari Cooper, that's a nice salary for him to be making. And it's a big investment on the part of the Browns. And if you pair him with Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore, they will have a very formidable trio at the wide receiver position. It should give Deshaun a lot of options. Both Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore should be able to run those choice routes. One of those guys is going to take the ball and run with it, literally, on those choice routes. And, and I think that those guys should complement each other very well. But Jerry Jeudy, he came very close to having a 1,000-yard season 2 years ago, 6 touchdowns that year. And I think they feel that he is capable of that type of production when he has one consistent quarterback and one quarterback by the name of Deshaun Watson.
Before we go to break, this is from one of your Hey Mary K's. Do you think Deshaun Watson, David Njoku increase their production this season? And if so, why do you think they will?
I think those two have the potential to be dynamite together. I really do. They haven't really had a chance to work together over a consistent basis yet. And David Njoku was one of the players that struggled last year to adjust to all the different quarterbacks, to all the different ways the ball was coming in. I would say that Amari Cooper did a really nice job of making those adjustments and pivoting from one quarterback to the next. It was something I felt that David Njoku kind of struggled with, and he dropped a lot of passes, but he hunkered down, he put his head down, he went back to work, he got on the jugs machine, he got refocused after he had his fire accident where, he burned his face with the fire pit in his hands, and he got very, very focused after that. And, I think he's poised to have a really big season. I've said it many, many times till everyone is sick of hearing me say it. I think he's at least an 8-touchdown-a-year tight end. He had 6 last year. I think that he should be able to get the 8 this year. You can just throw the ball up to him in the red zone and the end zone. He should tower over those smaller defenders, outmuscle them, make those contested catches, and really go gangbusters this year.
Yeah, Deshaun Watson in Houston had a lot of touchdown passes to tight ends, without question. Mary Kay Cabot and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. How you doing today? I just had some disturbing news on watching this Cleveland Browns in focus about Amari Cooper. But what this is saying, that he may go to Kansas City. So I am worried. What's the holdup? This was supposed to be a rumor, but why not pay Amari Cooper, who's comfortable with Watson, and he can train Jerry Jeudy? Thanks for taking my call. Appreciate it, Dave. Be safe and go Browns.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Mary Kay, I had not seen the Kansas City one. Have you heard anything more about the? I know people are on vacation is one of the things that's held things up. But have you heard anything more relative to the Cooper contract?
No, I haven't yet. Just still, just kind of waiting to see what might be coming down the road in that regard. Like you said, things are going to be starting to heat up, but, some front office people, some agents, some players do try to take a couple of weeks off, and you don't really get to that sense of urgency until you get closer to camp. Now they are starting to get closer to camp. So maybe there will be some activity on this week. Maybe things will heat up a little bit more, and, we'll just have to see how it goes. But, I think there is a path forward. I think they should be able to get something done, and I think they need to. I don't think you really want to go into this season without Amari Cooper if you can avoid it.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly. This is kind of interesting. This is the Bleacher Report, regrading the biggest trades and free agent signings of the offseason. and they've already upgraded their grade for the Browns trade for Jeudy. Broncos trade grade now a C, Browns A-. He's yet to have a 1,000-yard campaign, but he's been fairly productive with 211 catches, over 3,000 yards, and 11 touchdowns across his 4 NFL seasons. From the Browns' perspective, it was a major upgrade for a relatively low cost. And the reason it was a relatively low cost is because Andrew Berry did it before the wide receiver market absolutely blew up.
Yes, he got out in front of that, and that was very good because had he not done that, who knows where they would be right now, even with Jeudy. And you really don't want two guys having a contract issue as you head into your season. And, you know, as you think about it, I mean, even Elijah Moore is heading into the final year of his contract. So you've got 3 receivers, 3 really good receivers, but of course they all want to get paid like everybody else is getting paid. So we'll have to see how this all turns out. But as long as they get all of these guys into camp and happy, I think it will be a very formidable receiving corps.
So this is from the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. You, Ashley Bastock, Dan Lobby, do that. How the Browns defense will deal with the difficult quarterback schedule in year 2 under Jim Schwartz. We've talked about it. It's not getting any easier as you look at it.
Yeah, that's one of the 15 keys, and I will be working on that story tonight, posting it tomorrow morning. I've done a little bit of it so far, done a little bit of the diligence on that and the reporting, and it's pretty remarkable. I mean, they're facing, I think it's 12 Pro Bowl quarterbacks with 35 Pro Bowl appearances. You got at least 4 of them who probably will end up or could end up in the Hall of Fame someday, or will be candidates to be in the Hall of Fame someday. It's just very, very tough. If Joe Burrow is healthy and all these quarterbacks stay healthy and Dak's boot isn't a big, huge deal, then this is a vastly different quarterback lineup than what they faced last year, when by the time you got to the end of the season, you had a series of backups and you needed every single victory that you could get. And it didn't hurt that they were facing Case Keenum and Trevor Siemian and Jake Browning and whatnot. So, you know, it's going to be tough and they're going to have to be on point, but I think the defense is up to the task.
So along those lines, how do you think players, and again, this is from the Orange and Brown Talk podcast, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, Martin Emerson, 2 young guys, how do you think they impact the Browns defense?
Those guys have played really, really well. They both had excellent years last year. I think Martin is poised for even more this year. Both of them are, I think, on a Pro Bowl trajectory. I think that those guys are flourishing in Jim Schwartz's scheme. I think you're going to see Martin take on even more responsibility when it comes to those top echelon receivers that he's going to have to face. I think he's going to get some interceptions added into his game. And you know, I just think that you're going to see, in some cases, just dominant performances by those guys in some games against these excellent quarterbacks. And that's what you're going to need. You're going to need a sideline to sideline fast guy like JOK to chase these guys down, to hem them in, to bat down some passes, to grab some interceptions, force some fumbles. And that's what these guys need. They need to force more turnovers and they need to make more impact plays.
Along the lines of the 15 keys, why is Myles Garrett one of them?
Well, Myles is obviously the NFL Defensive Player of the Year, the reigning NFL Defensive Player of the Year. The thing with Myles is that he has to stay strong through the end and through the playoffs. And they're going to have to do everything they can as an organization, as a team, to make sure that he can stay healthy and strong through the end, whether that's taking more time off during the week, whether that's taking off a few plays during each game, whether that's, I don't know what else they can possibly do. But they need to make sure that a guy who takes on all of those double teams and all of those triple teams, that he can be going strong when they really need him at the end. And they do have a new performance director with the Cleveland Browns. Maybe he'll dig into that a little bit and see what he can't do there. But I think that's a very big key to the season. Yeah,
they got a guy from the Olympic to help with performances and the like. All right, before we go to break, other than Ken Dorsey, and again, this is from a Hey Mary Kay, which new Browns assistant coach thinks the most important?
other than Ken Dorsey, I think that one of them would be Jacques Césaire. I mean, you can name a lot of these guys for this particular question or category because Andy Dickerson is important too on the offensive line for sure. But I'm going to say Jacques because I do think that they need to get another player or two in double-digit sacks. I think he's going to try really hard to make that happen, bring out the best in Z and Obo and some of these guys, and at the same time, make sure that he's getting more out of Myles Garrett, which he said he wants to do and Myles wants to do. So I do think that Jacques is right up there with any of the other assistants in terms of impact he can make this season.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take one more time out, other side of the break. We'll talk a little bit about the Browns' offensive line. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Can you believe this new $1,000 tax-free scratch-off? $18,000, $1,000 winners? Another winner? Good thing I brought my check writing pens. You know what else is winning? My carpal tunnel syndrome. Wouldn't it be great for these guys if they could cash their tickets in online?
They can, with the Ohio Lottery app.
What? That's great! Wait, what's an app?
Attention shoppers, the Ohio Lottery's $1,000 tax-free $20 scratch-off is your best chance ever to win $1,000. And yes, you can cash it in online.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. This is Wyatt Teller from the Go Long TD podcast explaining why he has faith that Deshaun Watson can regain his form as one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL with everything that Watson has gone through the last couple of years, both on and off the field with the Browns.
Just from the start, I think that curveballs have been thrown at him. But no, I mean, I'll tell you this right now. I've seen glimpses, I've seen flashes of it, of just absolute greatness. I know that putting a whole game together is really freaking hard, especially at the helm of quarterback. But even in the Ravens game, I mean, he was doing what he wanted to do when he wanted to do it. And that was, I mean, we saw with DTR, who's an amazing guy, great quarterback, good quarterback. He's just young, inexperienced, and that defense ate him alive. And that it got into a passing frenzy versus that front. I don't care how good your offensive line is. That's not going to be a recipe for success. So, you know, I've seen, and then we see the exact same defense. Everybody's out there again. And Deshaun does what he does, and we play really tight with an unbelievable team. And I would love to say, you know, he has glimpses of Patty Mahomes. Patty Mahomes is once-in-a-lifetime guy. I mean, he's insane, and he has great outlets. He has great receivers. He has a great defense. He has all these different things around him to make him better, but he is the truth. I believe that Deshaun has that. I truly do. I've seen glimpses of it, you know, putting a whole game together. I mean, it's tough. Putting a whole season together, putting a whole stretch together. It's fucking hard, man.
Mary Kay, you listen to Wyatt Teller talk. You can tell he truly believes what he's saying. It's not like it's scripted. It's coming straight, you know, from his heart, if you will.
Yeah, these guys have seen it. And the other thing that you have to consider is they know that he came bounding out of the locker room in that Baltimore Ravens game in Baltimore on a high ankle sprain. And they didn't know it at the time, but he had a fractured shoulder as well. But they saw him come out of that locker room. And he could have easily shut it down at halftime, came out and went 14 for 14 and put the team on his back, and not single-handedly, but really, really helped them win that game with that amazing come-from-behind victory, 33-31. When you do things like that, you win over those big, tough guys. There's no question about it. So they know that he's tough. They know he never wants to come out of a game. They know that even in that first Baltimore game, the reason why he was out there testing the shoulder before the game is because he really thought he could play, even though his shoulder was telling him something else. So they know how absolutely tough he is. He never says die. The play is always alive, and they love to play for a guy like that.
All right, so this is another one of your Hey Mary Kays. Do you think Jedrick Wills at left tackle, DeJuan Jones at right tackle is a lock? What about Jack Conklin?
It's tough to say what's going to happen here. I think it's going to be one of the more intriguing battles of training camp, and maybe Jack needs a little bit more time, even though he recently posted that he is good to go. If he truly is good to go, then they might have some decisions to make in terms of who's going to play where and when. But if, Jed did not practice in minicamp, so maybe he needs a little bit more time. I think health will help govern who's going to start where. And I know that DeWand, I talked to him extensively about this. He feels that he can move over and play on the left side. He has no qualms about doing that if it comes to that. And so who knows? For a while, it could be Jack on the right and DeWand on the left. I'm not saying that is going to happen, but if they had to do it, DeWand certainly feels confident enough to go out there and play there at that very important position. So they have some options. They may end up having to use all three of those guys. They probably will. They got down to number 4 and 5 last year. So it stands to reason that with 3 guys coming off of knee injuries, they're going to get their reps.
Well, the other thing is you'd rather have more. See last year, and you'd rather have more tackles than too many tackles than not enough tackles.
Right, absolutely. And I mean, it's such an important position, and you are protecting your $230 million investment, and you want to keep him as upright as possible. As it is, he takes a number of sacks not because those guys aren't doing their job, but because he does hang on to the ball for a very long time, looking for that play. And as I said before, never saying die, never giving up on the play. So as it is, he already is going to get knocked around a little bit, which you don't want that. But that's just who Deshaun is. So you need the most top tier offensive lineman you can possibly get, and they have 3 great tackles.
All right, so another one of your Hail case. The tight end room. Do the Browns seem content? Do you think they look possibly roster cutdowns to improve it?
That's one spot where I do think that they will look for another player. They definitely have an opening there if they can find somebody that can come in and help this tight end room, because we know they lost Harrison Bryant, and right now they primarily have David Njoku, Jordan Akins. They also have Zaire Mitchell-Payton, but they might be able to squeeze somebody else in there that is going to be able to, to get the job done for them at that position. They have Giovanni Ricci too, and he is sort of a hybrid type of player who can play tight end. So we'll see how it goes, but as of right now, I wouldn't be surprised if they at least keep their eyes peeled for another one.
So this is the longest droughts for teams without a player who has 10-plus touchdowns in a season. The Browns have the longest in the NFL at 2007 was the last one. That was Braylon Edwards, who had 16 in 2007. Cardinals, 2013. Bears and Saints, 2014. Patriots, Jets, Jaguars, Panthers, Commanders, 2015. And the Giants, 2016. Those are all offenses that have struggled to throw the football. But it does go to show you the Browns have struggled throwing the football for quite a while.
Well, I mean, you have to consider that with Deshaun Watson, he has started only 6 games in each of the past 2 seasons. So they haven't had what they thought they were going to have, and that was that elite quarterback throwing all of those touchdown passes. They have not had that yet. And Baker, when he was here, he struggled in the end zone and the red zone, and he kind of got that solved, but it's easier to get that solved when you have a Mike Evans and you connect with him the way that he has there. Also different level of division and all those kinds of things too, but they're going to need to increase that. I think you should see someone with 10 touchdowns. It probably would be Amari Cooper if he gets in on time and everything goes the way that it should. Those 2 guys already have a really nice connection with each other, and he has come close here. So, I do think it's possible, and hopefully for them, they will be able to go out there and make that happen.
All right, before I let you go, this is from NFL.com. Long shot picks to win each NFL award. Comeback Player of the Year, they go with Deshaun Watson, currently 22-1 according to Caesars Sportsbook. We could see Watson reemerge as a true difference maker in Cleveland. The veteran has a collection of pass catchers who can win one-on-one matchups against any opponent. In addition, the Browns' ground game and stout offensive line should enable Watson to attack downfield on various play-action passes that produce long-distance scores. And I will go out on a limb and say if Deshaun Watson wins Comeback Player of the Year, Browns are at least going to the AFC Championship game.
Could happen. Now, of course, as you will remember, those awards are voted on before the playoffs. So, so that's always a factor. But if he is playing at the level that he's capable of playing, then certainly they should be able to meet up with, say, the Chiefs or whoever in the AFC Championship game. Again, not going to be easy by any stretch. They're in such an incredibly difficult conference. Quarterbacks are playing really well right now. There's so many good ones. And again, I mean, you've got Joe Burrow coming back healthy. Of course, you've got Josh Allen you have to deal with. So it's not going to be easy to get there by any stretch of the imagination. But if Deshaun is at his peak form, he has the talent to do it.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it very much, Mary Kay.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Mary Kay Cabot, make sure you check her out. Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Always best Browns coverage in town. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.